When you finally meet the one, you become more comprising, always willing to change for the love of your life. That's what happens to the charming musician Satya Keller when he meets the sexy, dependable Charlotte Posh. He realizes that when it matters, the things he used to dislike are always worth fighting for. Satya Keller is known to be the life of the party when he sits by the piano, flinging out tunes that always make anyone jive until they're breathless. He loves to have fun and see everyone else having fun. He is a favorite at Jules Jazz, a music lounge where people from all walks of life come to enjoy his music or other people's company. Just like tonight, his best friend, Laurent, is a regular who thinks of the place as a good source of women to bring to bed. They're both writing a theater show, which they dream to show to investors and have it shown all over Paris. His other best friend, Dr. Lionel, brings his wife Chris and their newborn son to the lounge. It's inexplicable how an infant can sleep so soundly in such a noisy place, but that's one of life's many mysteries. Satch is relieved to not become a godfather to Lionel's son. You see, he doesn't like kids. Why would he, when he's living the carefree single life, with not so much worry? He can have any lady, perfect for one-night stands, and a job that can finance his lifestyle. He won't want to change anything in his perfect life. But fate will have its way with him, and it happens on that particular Tuesday in May. After another night of partying, Satya wakes up to find his mother already cleaning in his kitchen. She always comes to her son's apartment to take care of household chores. That's how much she dotes on him. And it's not a strange sight for her anymore if lady is coming down the stairs, just like now, as discreetly as possible despite the lack of clothes. Satya is grateful for his mother, but he doesn't like her touching his computer where he creates and mixes tunes. At that time, he receives a video call from his immediate supervisor Xavier. The latter is already adamant about hearing the jingle that Satya is supposed to compose. Satya assures him he's on it, and ends the call. Once he's alone in his apartment, he starts striking chords on the piano he inherited from his father, and sings the lyrics with the tune. In just a few minutes, Satya Keller has created a 5-second jingle that will definitely become a hit to the public. That's how talented and confident he is. Later, he arrives at the advertising company he works at and assures Xavier the jingle is done. Satya is part of a team that creates commercials, and he's in charge of the tunes. Laurent is also a member, and he is the visual director. The jingle Satya has composed is part of the commercial their team will offer to one of the most prominent businessmen in Paris, Alain Porsche. Despite the team's confidence, Alain is someone who isn't easily pleased. He comments on the length of the song, to which Satya replies it's natural because it's a 5-second song. Everyone looks nervous for Satya and his smart mouth, but Alain doesn't pay him any attention. Instead, he guides the sexy secretary beside Satya to his office. The employees call Alain the chick poacher, and Satya uses the name with savage resentment. As he leaves the building, he's greeted by heavy rainfall, and the sight of his convertible drowning in rainwater. Well, this day couldn't get any better, Satya thinks sarcastically as he closes the roof of his car. To his surprise, a lady trips heavily behind him. He snickers before helping her get off the ground. The lady insults his car and blames it for her mishap, but karma gets back at her fast. A bus passes by, drenching the lady in rainwater. Luck seems to have forsaken her, because he gets hit by Satya's keys that the valet tossed away. He can't help but pity her, so he offers her a ride. As he's about to open the car door for her, he takes a good look. And she looks at him, too. It's an instant attraction between them, and the weather seems to be agreeing, as the rain stops and the sun peeks from behind the rain clouds. Satya can see her hazel green eyes that fit her angular yet softly delicate face. The lady can see that Satya isn't a typically handsome man, but she can certainly drown in those bright blue eyes. They introduce themselves to each other. Satya learns her name is Charlotte. Both of them are valiantly trying to be as normal as possible, despite their intense attraction. Eventually, they both decide to take a break at a cafe to dry themselves off. From their conversation, we learn that Satya Keller's father was a great pianist, and passed down to his son his beloved piano and car. Meanwhile, Charlotte works at Foundation, an organization that produces contemporary art shows. Satya thinks Charlotte is working for Chick Poacher's wife, but he's wrong. Charlotte is Chick Poacher's wife. It turns out Charlotte Posh has been separated from her husband for 2 years, but they're not technically divorced. Since then, Alain has used his freedom to exercise his preference for open relationships, which earned him the nickname. At first, Satya is taken aback by this information, but it doesn't stop him from making the first move. He attempts to kiss her, but she turns her head away. He says, "A kiss is only a kiss," a famous line from his favorite movie, Casablanca. But Charlotte doesn't look thrilled about it. Later, Satya drives her home. He looks on wistfully as Charlotte walks to her apartment building. However, after a few minutes, he sees her running back to him and kissing him ardently, asking him to take her away. So he takes her home, and they both have an energetic, passionate, and fun-filled night. They don't notice the time. That's why Charlotte is so surprised to learn it's already 7:30 in the morning. She scrambles to get up and get dressed, and falls off the stairs in the process. But she looks fine and gets out of the door, barely getting Satya's number. Later that day, Satya meets up with Lionel and his wife at an Italian restaurant. He's still feeling blissful about last night, and when Chris hands him a ukulele, he can't help but turn the place into a Disney setting, where everyone is invited by the protagonist to sing. When Laurent comes in and happily says he's gotten the Adami, no one knows what he means, but the merrymaking continues. Later, he explains to Sacha that he has secured a presentation with the Mogador, a well-known theater in Paris. He says they only have 1 month to complete the show they're both writing. This is the break they've been waiting for, a shot at showcasing their passion for creating a show. Eventually, Sacha agrees to create the music for their project. Meanwhile, Charlotte is also still reeling from last night's escapade. She's so giddy that she accidentally tells her friend Cecile about it. The latter looks happy about the news, but she must leave Charlotte so she can entertain her guests. They're at the art show she organized to showcase the work of an up-and-coming artist. Her husband, Alain, is also there, who brings some dignitaries. In public, Alain and Charlotte look like a powerhouse couple, and the image serves Alain well in his businesses. As for Charlotte, it's been 2 years of boring life until last night. She plans to meet Sacha again. Sacha, as of that moment, is waiting for his number, as it's his schedule to have a solo performance at Jules Jazz. When he receives a text from Charlotte, Laurent unfortunately sees it. He grabs Sacha's phone, and, together with Lionel, they start grilling their friend about this new conquest of his. They see the love-struck expression in his eyes, but they're genuinely surprised to find out the woman is in her mid-30s. They wonder when their friend changed his preference from younger to older women. When Sacha receives a second message, he doesn't hesitate to stand and tell the bartender he'll perform on another day. He gets to Charlotte's address, and the two immediately start kissing. They get to her room, where things are getting better. But just as they finish, a young boy opens the door and starts looking for his mother. Sacha is thrown out of bed. When he gets up, he points at the boy, horrified, as if Charlotte is cuddling a changeling. She introduces the boy as Leonard. Then she beckons him to follow her. She leads him to 2 more rooms, showing her eldest daughter Susie and eldest son Louis. Sacha is still panicking at the idea that Charlotte has kids. 3 kids. But, curiously, it doesn't stop him from meeting her, despite vowing that he doesn't like kids. He sends her a literal invitation to another night of passionate lovemaking, to which she excitedly answers. She almost trips again as she sees Sacha's car. Throughout the movie, one can see that Charlotte is prone to losing her footing. Sacha jokes that she has almost met another man. They laugh, but she suddenly ducks towards his legs. It turns out Elaine's car is passing by and stopping in the traffic. Sacha remains cool. Once the car leaves, he asks her what the deal is between her and her husband. Apparently, she hasn't told Elaine about her relationship with Sacha, and she hasn't told her kids, either. As they walk up the stairs, kissing each other, they hear a frantic call from a young boy. But it's actually Charlotte's ringtone. What a way to ruin the mood. Charlotte says she needs to go. Sacha lets her go, promising to meet her later. That night, he comes to Charlotte's apartment, finding her collecting and putting aside toys. She says she lost track of time, and asks if he can put Leonard to bed. He has a sore throat and can't sleep. So Sacha tries his best to carry the kid. Either he doesn't like touching kids, or he hasn't experienced carrying one. But after much difficulty, he finally settles Leonard in his arms. But the kid's eyes are open. Horrified, Sacha sings a lullaby to put him to sleep. And miraculously, Leonard sleeps. But Sacha throws the kid onto the bed when he hears loud clattering from somewhere. Charlotte comes in and asks for help in the bathroom. It looks like someone trashed the inside, with a serious water leak puddling on the floor. After a while, they both manage to wipe away the water. But suddenly, the sink lunges off the wall, due to water pressure and faulty plumbing. Did we say Charlotte is prone to losing her footing? Perhaps it's correct to say she's an accident-prone human. Sacha orders her to go to bed while he spends all night fixing the leak. What he does isn't a permanent solution, but it'll do in the meantime. However, it doesn't work, as the kids yells about leaking water wake up Sacha and Charlotte. Sacha scrambles to hide while Charlotte makes sure none of her kids will see him. Once he's dressed the wrong way, he gets out of the apartment, only to be greeted by an angry man who holds him by the ears. He threatens Sacha to never come near his family again, before letting him go and getting greeted by Susie. Later, after Charlotte brings the kids to school, she clarifies that she's been married twice. The man who pulled Sacha's ears earlier is César, her first husband, and Susie's father. After their divorce, she met Elaine, who fathered Louis and Leonard. Although she hasn't technically divorced the businessman, Charlotte considers herself separated from him. Sacha seems to not mind, as he can see that Charlotte is doing her best to be a good mother to her kids. They have another tryst in his apartment before she remembers she has to go to the grocery store. Together they do the grocery shopping, with Charlotte on the lead. It becomes apparent that Sacha has never set foot inside the establishment, as he doesn't know what to pick from the list that she gave him. However, Charlotte finds it adorable. Even when, later that day, she finds out that it's Sacha's mother who does the cleaning and grocery shopping for him. He defends himself, saying his mother dotes too much on him. Charlotte can only smile, as she can see herself doing the same for her boys. When Sacha and Laurent meet again to conceptualize their show, Laurent presses his friend about his new relationship conquest. He's horrified to learn that Sacha has been seeing Charlotte Posh. Immediately he advises his friend to stop seeing her, as he sees her as a bad omen. However, Sacha is too invested in the family. He comes back to Charlotte's apartment, not to have another tryst, but to fix their plumbing. He's genuine in his intentions, as he's brought his own tools. But he's still wary of the kids. Charlotte introduces him to Susie and Louis, and she says he's a friend. She even invites him to have lunch with them. When Leonard sees him, the toddler points his finger at him and shouts, "Not a plumber." Evidently, the kid knows who he is. It is an awkward meal, especially when Susie asks how he met her mother. To avoid answering the question, Sacha does a magic trick of pulling screws out of his nose, which effectively diverts the kids' attention and delights them. For someone who doesn't like kids, he surely knows how to entertain them. Leonard also tries a magic trick by barfing on the table. After Sacha leaves to clean the table, Susie gives her mother a knowing look. She already has an idea of what's going on between Charlotte and her so-called plumber friend. One day, after another meeting with Xavier about the commercial projects, Laurent badgers Sacha again about his relationship with Charlotte. He asks him to break up with her, or at least continue seeing her after the meeting with the Mogador. They only have 1 week left before the presentation, and they can't afford to screw this up. But Sacha says he can't, as he's promised the kids he'll come bowling with them on Sunday. Laurent becomes upset. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that shouldn't be wasted. He points out that Sacha is spending his life dreaming about too many dreams. It's high time he makes one of those come true. Sacha gets taken aback. He recognizes that he is, indeed, a dreamer. And yet, he still goes bowling with the kids. He tries his best to teach each one of them how to handle the ball and roll it correctly to hit the pits, all while enduring playful hits from Leonard's toy sword. To his annoyance, he discovers Lionel, Laurent, and his very own grandmother Fanfan Keller spying on them. He introduces Charlotte to them. Fanfan seems to be welcoming about her grandson's girlfriend, while Lionel and Laurent keep observing how their friend is slowly changing in the love department. Their conversation gets interrupted when Charlotte answers a call. It's Elaine calling her, and he's reminding her of the charity dinner they're supposed to attend together that night. Charlotte doesn't want to go, because no one will look after her kids. Elaine has the gall to suggest Susie do it, and just pay her for it. He doesn't like the girl, because she's not his. Charlotte is firm about not attending unless someone will be there for her kids. When she relays her dilemma to Sacha and others, Lionel and Laurent don't hesitate to volunteer their friend, knowing his aversion to kids. It will be fun to see Sacha suffer at the hands of Susie, Louis, and Leonard. Charlotte, unaware of this, agrees. And so, Charlotte attends the charity dinner, leaving Sacha to look after the kids. It doesn't take that long for the man and children to play pillow fight and enjoy the rest of the afternoon. When it's time to go to bed, Sacha herds the children effectively, who seem to have accepted his presence in their lives. He sees the papier-mâché dolls that Louis made, depicting his family together with Elaine. He's holding on to his father's words that one day, they'll all live together. When he visits Susie, the girl tells him that he rarely sees her father, César, in Paris. Mostly he spends his time in his gym, or with his new girlfriend. But he doesn't visit her that often. It dawns on Sacha that the kids lack a fatherly figure in their lives, and that they miss them very much. He makes that insight when he's doodling on some music sheets he brought, and showing them to Leonard. The kid suddenly tells him he'll finish him off when he grows up, but Sacha doesn't pay any attention to it. Then, to his surprise, the kid falls asleep on his leg. If that is not an adorable scene, then nothing is. Sacha realizes how much the kids want to have a permanent father figure. And, surprisingly, he finds himself willing to fill in that position. He waits for Charlotte to come home. After a tiring day, they're both ready to spend the rest of the night in each other's arms. But their private moment is cut short when Elaine comes in to bring Charlotte's scarf left from the party. That's when he finds out the relationship between his wife and the composer he doesn't like much. Charlotte and Sacha brush off this incident, thinking it's bound to happen sooner or later. What they don't realize is the repercussions they'll both face once Elaine makes his move. Sacha spends the next few days with the family, trying to fill the hole in the kids' lives. He helps them with their homework, and sometimes brings them to restaurants to spend quality time together. He may not know it, but he's slowly opening his heart to the kids, and the kids are welcoming him into their lives. Charlotte sees all this, and she can only appreciate all the effort Sacha gives to be there for the kids. However, in return, Sacha loses valuable time working on the music for the show. It's the eve before the presentation. Laurent is panicking about all their unfinished work. Sacha tries to assure his friend that they'll finish everything in time. But even he himself is not confident that the presentation may go smoothly. Regardless, time still runs, and it's finally the day. Sacha gathers up his music sheets, Laurent's laptop, and the gift intended for Leonard. He decides to stop by Charlotte and the kids first, to drop off the present. He plays for a few minutes with Leonard before thinking it's time to go. However, the kid pukes on him. By the time his suit is clean and dry, he's already running late. To make matters worse, he can't find his car keys. He asks the toddler, but Leonard stubbornly says he doesn't like him. He runs to the door, grabs the scooter nearby, as it's the only available transportation, and then he's gone. He finally arrives at the empty theater where he and Laurent are supposed to do the presentation. His friend is already there, nervous and stuttering in his presentation. Without his laptop, without Sacha to play a sample accompaniment for their show, he's lost. But Satcha's arrival doesn't help advance things. His laptop is destroyed, probably due to Satcha dropping it multiple times on the way. The music sheets are also torn and folded, like a toddler had a fun time crumpling them up. Satcha goes to the piano to play, but his hands are too sticky. He looks for a Kleenex in his pocket, and that's where he finds his car keys. The representatives from the Mogador Theater believe Satcha and Laurent are only joking around, so they leave. That means their show has been rejected. Sasha is devastated. Laurent scolds him for what happened. He tells Satcha that ever since his father passed, he's always been afraid. Afraid to be compared to the great pianist, afraid to never measure up to his father's legacy. Laurent adds he's done everything possible to get Satcha out of the swirl of insecurities and self-doubt. But it looks like the rest of the work depends on him. Later, the two vent out their frustrations at Jules Jazz. Their friend Lionel knows what has happened, and he brings even darker news. 2 other theater companies have blacklisted Satcha from ever presenting again. Laurent reveals he knows about this, and adds that the 2 companies, and many others, are under Elaine Pasha's payroll. It becomes clear now that the businessman is sending a clear message to Satcha: leave his wife alone. Laurent begs him to break up with Charlotte. And with that, the 2 friends decide to bring girls to Satcha's apartment and have some fun. Deep in the night, Satcha hears a knock on his door. It's Charlotte, worried about him, and has come to apologize for what her son did. But just then, one naked girl walks behind him and into the bathroom, followed by another girl, then Laurent. Charlotte is speechless. Satcha can only explain that he did all this because Elaine blacklisted him. Instead of sympathy, he receives a resounding slap from Charlotte before she leaves. Satcha looks lost as it dawns on him just how much he's losing by going back to his old ways. Charlotte is greatly hurt by his betrayal. But if there's one thing she has learned, it's that she and the kids will always be dependent on Elaine, no matter how many men come into her life. It's time for her to step up, make herself heard, and get out of the prison that is her marriage with him. The next day, she boldly steps into his office and demands to continue with the divorce proceedings. After a few moments, Elaine slowly agrees, but the children will stay with him. He doesn't want them to be raised by a loser who only manages pitiful artists. Charlotte corrects him, saying she helped him grow by managing those he calls pitiful artists. She's tired of being the trophy wife, and it's time for her to move on. Before she leaves his office, she tells him she's no longer scared of what he can do. Satcha and Charlotte haven't communicated for a few days, until Susie calls him for an emergency. She accidentally cut her ankle on a broken mirror. Satcha doesn't hesitate to come and bring her to the hospital. Soon, Charlotte arrives and is deeply anxious about her daughter's condition. Thankfully, it's nothing serious, as it's Lionel who took care of Susie. In no time, Satcha and Charlotte bring the girl home, much to the relief of her siblings. Satcha stays for a while to fix Susie's bedroom. Clearly the kids miss him, even Leonard, who endearingly calls him Sushi. After that, it's evident that Satcha wants to stay longer. But Charlotte has put up her pride to not talk to him again. Satcha and Charlotte spend the next few days in depressed moods. It has become clear to Charlotte how much her kids like Satcha, and how they depend on him like he's their real father. It's something she can't provide them, no matter how strong and independent she is. As for Satcha, he finally realizes he loves Charlotte. The fact that she's not the usual young woman he goes after, and that he loves her kids without even knowing it, is a true testament that what he feels for her is real. He proves that when it's the real, genuine deal, he can leave his previous preferences and compromises. Despite Satcha's low mood, he's able to produce excellent music. Laurent hears this, and just in time. He has just managed to book a presentation with the theater company in Broadway, New York. He adds that the theater who wants to hear their show are Canadians, and they happen to have a show cancelled, which definitely has given a slot for them. Now this is a bigger deal, since if they're successful, they can reach out to a wider audience and finally become renowned in their field. This is something Satcha would have wanted before he met Charlotte. But now, he ponders on the fact that he'll be away from her for a long time, and he can't let it happen. It looks like he's already made up his mind. Laurent, sensing his friend's possible answer, takes matters into his own hands. Satcha goes to his grandmother Fanfan to tell her about Charlotte. Everything he's planned for the future with her in mind. The grandmother looks at her grandson and understands what he's trying to say. She asks him if she's the one, and Satcha says yes, without hesitation. This seemingly provides him with an answer to a question that's been burning in his mind. So he sends a message to Charlotte to meet at the park near her apartment. At that time, Charlotte is helping her friend Cecile in her flower shop, and discussing her plans after her divorce with Elaine. She looks so excited when she receives the message that Cecile urges her friend to go, knowing this is her happiness. Charlotte decides to go home to get her scarf first when she realizes Laurent is visiting her. He's told her everything about the New York presentation, the Canadians who are willing to hear them, and the opportunity it offers for Satcha's future. Later, when they meet at the park, Satcha tells her he loves her, and wants to spend the rest of his life with her and her kids. But Charlotte answers no. It's impossible, because she has decided to get back with Elaine. She reasons that losing custody of the kids is not worth breaking her ties with her husband and changing her lifestyle. Heartbroken, Satcha slams the bouquet of peonies on a tree and leaves her alone. He doesn't see the tears of regret falling from her eyes. Satya has decided to go with Laurent to New York to try their luck there. Fortunately, the producers love their concept, and instantly they have a deal. Now they just need to spend a few months in preparation for their first show. Despite this, Satya still remembers Charlotte and the kids. He misses them so much that he's drawn a lot of cartoons on his music sheets, just to remind him of them. Back in Paris, Charlotte meets César, from whom she discovers valuable information. It turns out Elaine bought César his gym and cans just so he'd get away from Charlotte. César says men are ruthless when it comes to rivals, and will do everything in their power to pull them away from their women. Charlotte, suspecting the same thing may have happened to Satya, confirms with Elaine's secretary about transactions regarding any musical shows. Indeed, there was an advance payment wired to Canadians who own a theater in New York. It becomes clear just how much Elaine wants Satya out of his life. Unfortunately, Satya will learn this too. It's the party to celebrate the progress of the show, and it's quite promising. Lionel and Chris come to New York to congratulate their friends, but they're also there with a purpose. Charlotte has told them what has happened, so they need to confirm it with Laurent. The latter admits it, but tries to defend himself. However, he realizes what he's done. Satya sees Chris spilling her drink on Laurent and asks what's wrong. Laurent tries to walk out and resign as the director, before one of the producers pulls them to an empty bar to talk things out. There, the producer reveals that Posh has indeed invested in the show, just to make Satya leave Paris. Laurent also confesses he met with Charlotte behind his back to convince her to let him go. At that time, he didn't realize the two loved each other. Satya finally understands she loves him. The producer urges him to get the last flight to Paris, but reminds him to come back in 5 days for their next show. Satya takes this opportunity, and punches his friend for everything he's done. He finally arrives in Paris. His first order of business is to go to Elaine and let him know he's taking Charlotte and the kids to New York. He also thanks him for funding the show. As Satya leaves the building, Elaine follows him and warns him to be careful in his next step towards Charlotte. But Satya stands his ground and says he'll fight for her no matter what. He tells him he can't love the kids if the two of them are at war with each other. Eventually, Elaine admits he hates Satya. Despite appearances, Charlotte and the kids are his life. It's important to him that whoever replaces him as the father will measure up. And he finally sees Satya as a worthy candidate. Satya nods, indicating he'll do his best. And with that, Satya leaves. His next destination is Charlotte's apartment, but he finds out they've changed their address since the divorce has begun. Soon, he finds them in the middle of arranging furniture, with most of it still scattered in front of the house. Charlotte, Susie, and Louis are happy to see him. Then a man without a shirt comes out of the house, carrying Leonard. It looks like Satya's worst fears have happened, but it turns out the man is simply a helper. Letting out a sigh of relief, he welcomes the kids into his arms. And finally, their mother walks up to him. Without words, they communicate to each other their feelings and the promise of a lifetime of living together. They hug, but they clumsily fall to the ground with the kids. They laugh, signifying the start of their fun-filled lives as a family.